When did you decide this was the time to retire?
Well, it's been in the back of my mind for the last several years, and I knew I was working my way up to the point where I would be vested with the county. And some things have changed in my personal life that kind of made it just right, and it just happened. So
When you applied for this job, you were doing something else. What were you doing
I
at that
worked
time?
at the Marine Institute, and at that time, the program was out at North Island, and my office was on Front Street. It was up above what is now Indigo Bakery, and the boat would come right up to the dock there on Front Street and bring kids, take kids, get supplies, that type thing. And it wasn't exactly a 9-to-5 job. If kids had to go to the dentist or a doctor's appointment, that type thing, and sometimes it might be in the middle of the night to the emergency room, I had to be involved in that, and getting the paperwork from the office, getting them set up, sometimes accompanying them. So Savannah was about 6 months old, and at the time Ricky was working for the sheriff's department, and so he had night shifts, and sometimes I had late hours, and we had a 6-month-old. So he is the one that encouraged me to look for something a little different, even though I loved that job. So he found a listing in the newspaper, at the time the print newspaper, for the clerk to council position, and said, well, why don't you take a look at this? And I wasn't all that interested, and he said the cutoff was the very next day, and he said, well, if you'll brush up your resume, I'll hand deliver it so it gets there on time. And lo and behold, here we are 29 years later.
So the administrator at that time was?
Gordon Hartwig.
Gordon Hartwig. Okay, so you've been through how many administrators?
I think 4 administrators and 2 interim administrators.
Okay. Your days of putting together council packets, what were they like back then when you had to stand at a copy machine to do it?
Well, at the time I used a copy machine that was shared between several departments, and all the other departments knew when it was council briefing book day, and I stood there all day long and put all the packets together. Sometimes it would be just quite a bit of material, and there were packets that could be almost a ream of paper each, and they had to be hole punched and put together, and about the time you thought you were finished, somebody would say, oh, we have to update that report, there's a new contract. And so here you go digging through to page number 493 and pull out the contract and switch it out in 10 books.
So you had to do that twice a month?
Twice a month. So you would work all week to prepare for a particular meeting. When it was over, you had a couple of days to do cleanup with what happened during the meeting, notifying board members that were appointed, reappointed, taking care of that, and then you were right back to the next week.
But another thing that was different, when you finished putting the packets together, you had to get in the car and you would hand deliver them to each of the council members, which meant driving all over the county.
Driving all over the county from Andrews to Murrells Inlet. And one of my daughters just reminded me the other day, Mom, do you remember that I would ride with you and I had to run the packet up and put it in the mailbox or on the porch? So
today, how long does it take to put a packet together, and how do they get them now?
Everything is distributed electronically, and it's, it takes Still a couple of days, but it's not the physical part of putting it together. It's gathering the information, and now because it is electronic, there are sometimes last minute changes and switches, and so that takes a little time, but we simply press post and it's distributed.
Back in the early days of your career, we didn't really have all that many people at public comment. I think there was an incident called Box the Neck when they wanted to put a Walmart, I think it was, in Pawleys Island. I think that was the first time that there was a huge crowd at a county council meeting, for public comment. And since then, we have time to time where we have huge crowds now. Why do you think early days people didn't?
Well, I think early on, the majority of people didn't know maybe what was on their agenda or what they were making decisions on. And it's taken me over 28 years to admit that I didn't know who my council representative was when I applied for this position. So I was not involved in political things like that and local government. Now, because of the internet and live streaming and all the council's materials are available online before the meeting, people do get more involved and do give input, good and bad, and I think that's a good thing.
What are you going to miss the most?
I said this previously. I'm going to miss my coworkers and the relationships with citizens. I've come to know a lot of people over the years that my path would not have crossed with if I didn't take this job, and I'm very fond of quite a few of them.
Do you plan to work again? Because you can, or do you plan to just actually really retire?
Well, actually, I've had a couple of job offers.
Okay.
But I'm not interested. I really want to be retired at least for a minute. So,
maybe travel some a little bit?
Maybe do a little traveling. I'm gonna be spending a little more time with my mom. She's about to turn 90 years old. And
now you've been, I don't know if the word is training, but getting your replacement ready for quite a while. Alma Sierra, who's the daughter of Alma Sierra, which is interesting. Alma Sierra, the mother, is the victims advocate at the sheriff's office. So how did her daughter get chosen for this position?
Well, a couple of years ago, I had some money in my budget for a summer internship, and it didn't pay a whole lot, and I was having a really difficult time finding somebody who was interested. And Alma and I attended church together. I didn't really know her, but I knew of her. And one of my daughters is about her age and said, did you know she's going through some transitioning with her schooling and what she's doing, and she is available? And I just approached her and said, would you be interested in working for a couple of months part-time? And she was, and she just hit the ground running and did an excellent job, and kind of got way past being a file clerk in a couple of months. And so that's when I really started thinking, hey, I'm going to be retiring. I didn't vocalize that to her, but I was able to get her position put in my budget.
If we ever need it, she's bilingual. So she can speak Spanish and English. So if we ever need that at a council meeting, she can be right.
She's the only bilingual clerk in the state of South Carolina.
Are you
right
serious?
Now. Yes, she is.
Well, I didn't know that.
There are 46 clerks in 46 counties, and only one.
So, what would you like to say to wrap up here?
I think I would just encourage people to follow what's going on, because the decisions that are made in that room, that council chambers, do impact everybody, and it's not difficult to pay attention now when things are, you can watch it on a live stream and engage. It does make a difference. I've seen it.